Hello from Williamson Health. My name is Michelle Simpson, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Health Talks from the Inside Out. Dr. Cory Calendine from the Bone and Joint Institute of Tennessee, welcome. We thought you would be the perfect person to come on and talk with us.
So first question was, how did we choose surgery? And how did we choose hip and knee surgery?
So when I was in high school, I applied for this scholarship, the Community of Man and God Scholarship. And the gentleman in the area that was giving this scholarship was a cardiologist. So I was so inspired by his generosity, he was a physician obviously, and he was a cardiologist. So I knew for sure I was going to be a cardiologist as I went to med school. And then I got into med school, and I realized that in order to do cardiology, you have to do internal medicine first. Now, I have great love for my internal medicine colleagues. But that is hard work in a lot of ways. And what I mean by that is in internal medicine, these are complicated problems, and you're managing them over a long period of time. So early on in med school, we talked about it like this, quite frankly. You're either a cutter or you're not a cutter, which means you either have a short attention span and want to intervene acutely into real problems that people have, or you're more adept to the longer play, which is, again, equally powerful and important. But for me, I was a cutter early on. And so once you decide, okay, I want to do surgery, then you got to look at all the different subspecialties of surgery. And there are a lot of them. But there's only really one that has power tools, thus orthopedics.
How long is like an average procedure, like an average surgery that you're doing, either hip or knee?
It really depends. Listen, surgery is, every surgery is critical. People ask me, how many surgeries do you do in a day? And I always say I do one at a time. So there's really no rushing in surgery. But how long does each individual surgery take, like a hip replacement or knee replacement? That's where I spend most of my time. About an hour and a half. Yeah, and I try to be careful with that because as there's a lot of anxiety around surgery, and here at Williamson we do a great job updating the patient's family through the day. When are they talking to the anesthesiologist? When does the surgery actually start? And so when you relay this information, it takes about an hour and a half. You want to make sure that you highlight, sometimes it's a little quicker. Right. It's not because we were in any rush. Sometimes it takes a little longer. There's some challenges in there, and you have to adapt the surgery to each patient, but about an hour and a half. Pretty good guess.
Now, what made you choose your subspecialty of hips and knees?
The ability to give people back a high quality of life reliably now. Hip and knee replacement used to be, once you're 75 and you're in a wheelchair, then we'll consider something like hip or knee replacement. It's simply not like that anymore. People's demands are much higher. The average age of joint replacement in the U.S. goes down year after year after year. And that's because, we expect more, but thankfully the discipline, hip and knee replacement, has risen to that challenge.
And I love that you said quality of life because my grandmother had both hips replaced, and I feel like at that time, which was 25 years ago now, they were terrified of joint replacement surgery because recovery was terrible. You never got that quality of life back. What are the technologies that y'all have implemented since then that are now bringing that quality of life up to such a high standard?
What they did for you said your grandmother, what they did for your grandmother was, I'm sure, brilliant surgery. But in surgery, there's this underlying tone of, but how can we do it better, right? It's just not, you're really affecting people's lives. So it's really this drive of, what's better? Not that it didn't work, but how can we do it better? When I started here in 2007 at Williamson now, that was the Franklin Bone and Joint way back in the day. But I was the first fellowship-trained joint replacement guy here. Now, we were already doing hip and knee replacements at high volumes, Dr. Farrell and so many others. But I was the first fellowship trained. So when I came in, I was young, I was hungry, I was energetic. This was years ago. No, I maintained my energy. But we would keep people in the hospital 3 or 4 days after surgery, right? It was a major thing. And there's no way you should get them out of bed the day of surgery, right? Because they've had
lay there.
Just lay there because they've had a major surgery, and you don't want to be mean to these patients, and they're hurting, and so you just lay them there. And so early on, maybe I was here a couple of years, we started something that we called at the time Accelerated Recovery Program. So the concept was, we're going to start getting you up the day of surgery. And quite frankly, there was a huge backlash. Like, why, Dr. Calendine, would you harm these beautiful patients? And certainly I had some anxiety around that. But in fellowship, we had done that and found that if patients got up the same day of surgery, they actually have less pain. It seems initially maybe a little counterintuitive, but certainly what we found. So not only have we made advancements in the surgery itself, I want to talk about that in a second, but we have to salute everyone else around the surgery. Like, surgery is really not just about that 90 minutes, that hour and a half. It's really what happens before and after, and therapy is part of that. So getting patients up the very same day is so powerful. We've made massive improvements in our anesthesia techniques. We used to put people completely to sleep, put them on a ventilator, we would breathe for them at the time of surgery. Now, typically all our surgeries are done under spinal. Now, I'm careful to say this. We give people sleepy medicine to make sure that they have no memory of being in the operating room, right? Some patients think
nobody wants that.
Right? That's right. Some people think they're going to wake up in the middle, or I'm going to somehow ask them to help halfway through. It's not true. But a spinal, because we're not breathing for you, you're so much more clear-headed and there's less nausea. So there are anesthesia techniques, both to minimize the side effects of the medicines we give you, but in surgery. Now, obviously, that's my world, right? In surgery, we made some incredible technical advances. I'd have to look up the year, but maybe it was 2014. We started here with robotics and joint replacement. So robots sound cool. I mean, they do. Yeah. They sound cool. But it turns out they're very powerful and effective in surgery. It's all about precision. So we used to plan out hip and knee replacements with just plain x-rays. And now, as part of this robotic pathway we use, it's called Mako, robotic arm assisted surgery. So it's assisting the surgery. The robot's not doing the surgery.
You're still performing the surgery.
This is important.
Yes.
This is important
because I do think that some people think that the robot's just independently,
which is fair. So robotically assisted, very important. The robot does nothing without the surgeon. But instead of x-rays, we use a preoperative CT scan. We actually make a customized 3D model digitally now of every patient. And then at the time of surgery, we're able to use that information on a robotic arm, again for precision, in order to place those components perfectly, be that a hip or a knee. And that has been incredible. We want to get in and out with the least amount of damage. It's extremely complicated in the nuance of it, but also pretty easy to understand. Like you have this 3D model, and so obviously your level of precision is going to be out the roof. The precision of these instruments, it's like within 0.5 millimeters or something crazy like that, or so, depending on which variable you're looking at, it's like 0.1 millimeters, and you think, well, what is a millimeter, right? What is that? Somebody told me one time, I think this is true. It's 4 sheets of notebook paper stacked against each other. 4 sheets of notebook.
That's so small.
And that's 1 millimeter, and we're talking about sub-millimeter precision with these types of instruments. So again, we yes, surgery is a major procedure. We still use saws. I have to disclose that publicly. Yes. But doing that with precision, obviously, better for the patient, right? Faster recovery. Again, better ways to control their pain. That's really, really important, and better rehab protocols. So it's really a family of people that are really rallying around the patient.
So when should a patient come see you?
Right away.
Can they just call and make an appointment, or do they have to come through their primary care or some other referral?
Most all the time, patients can come directly to us, which is powerful, and I think helpful for our primary care colleagues who are just overwhelmed, so busy, and so when should you? I'll come back to that, but yes, call our office, and if you have musculoskeletal pain, if your joints and muscles and things hurt, then call us. My team will be able to figure out, our team will be able to figure out whether or not you need a referral or not. Right. Sometimes that's the case. Quite frankly, it's very rare these days. Usually you're able to call, but we can help you through that when you call. So don't worry about that. But when should you? Look, anytime you have a question about your own body, I think you deserve the right to answers. And even though there are incredible ways to Google, right? That's kind of the classic, or now I guess you're going to go chat GPT. You're not going to get the full experience of what's individual to you. So much of medicine, and probably why I'm even doing this, is medicine is so personalized. You can teach anybody the textbook and but can you connect to that individual patient in a very real way, meet them where they are for their quality of life? Not all of us have the same expectations, and so listen, I think anytime that you have aches and pains, I say never write them off as maturity. Don't write it off as maturity. Why not rage into the darkness? And so, if there's something bothering you, I think you deserve to be assessed.
And tell us a little bit more about, you mentioned the practice, Bone and Joint Institute of Tennessee. Can you tell us a little bit more about your practice?
Yes. Well, when I joined, I think I mentioned this earlier in 2007, I joined Dr. Farrell, who really started orthopedic care in this county when we were, again, formerly as Franklin Bone and Joint when I joined in 2007. There was a voice message that I always loved. You would call the office, and if you had to go on hold, it would say, the Bone and Joint Clinic was founded as a single-member orthopedic clinic by Dr. Craig Farrell in 1979. And
I love that you can recite that.
Oh, I love it. I had such a fond connection to being involved in something that was so, I think, ingrained into this county. If you look back at the history, Dr. Farrell, of course, was on the board of the hospital and all those, very instrumental in bringing the hospital here. And what makes Bone and Joint special? It's the legacy of Craig Farrell. We lost him several years ago following a polo accident. But even in our lobby, this building, if you haven't seen, I know you all have, but if the listeners haven't seen it, need to go. This place is beautiful. It's beautiful marble and glass. It's a wonderful place to experience, both to work there and as a patient. We want it to be very inviting. But in the lobby, we pay homage, we pay honor to Dr. Farrell, and his locker's in there actually. His Williamson Medical Center locker, the way just he left it when we lost him unexpectedly. So we've really tried to hold on to that heritage and that connection to the community. I think that's what makes it special. Hips and knees are pretty incredible, but really it's the people connected to those hips and knees, and so that's true from us as providers, obviously, but certainly about this community and the patients.
And as the county has grown, y'all have grown a ton, especially in the last couple of years. So how many surgeons do we have now at Bone and Joint?
The Bone and Joint has definitely grown, and we've tried to meet the needs of the community. And so as the community has grown, certainly we needed to now. We have 18 physicians now. 15 of those are surgeons, so not all we do is surgery. We should talk about that at some point. But so 18 physicians there. We have a slew of mid-level providers, PAs that support the physicians and obviously patient care. We have therapy there, of course, physical therapy. We try to take a real whole body approach to it. And so if there's something that our patients need in musculoskeletal care, we try to control that enough to be able to deliver it consistently across their, I guess, path in care.
And I know you've kind of grown outside of just the building on campus. You now have multiple locations throughout the community. Access
to care is so important, right? And traffic's tough. And so if we can ever come to the patients, we obviously want to do that. I mean, the majority of us are in this big, beautiful building. Another plug for the building. If you just want to hang out and have coffee, it's a beautiful place to come. So we certainly have a central hub. But we're really trying to reach out and be available where people need us.
When you mentioned that y'all do so much more than hip and knees, and we are, with this new podcast, hoping to bring in all your partners and talk about all the different areas.
Yeah, I mean, medicine's complicated. We were talking a little bit before the podcast. even like, what is a subspecialty? Like, what is a specialty? What is a subspecialty? Like, aren't all doctors the same? It gets complicated. I'm actually the third boy in our family. There are 3 boys, so I'm the youngest. That may or may not shock you.
Right.
And so so I went into orthopedics. My oldest brother, also a physician, went into pediatrics.
Okay.
My middle brother is a radiologist. So my parents, although not trained in medicine, have watched 3 of their own children go through this path of medicine and still have no clue about the terminology. For example, an internist is a primary care person, right? That's an internal medicine doctor. But the first year of your residency, so you go to med school and then you go to residency in whatever discipline you want, your first year of residency is called your intern year. My mom to this day occasionally calls me an intern or an internist. Bless her heart. But she knows I do hip and knee replacement. I mean, she's got that part. It's complicated. So the specialty would be orthopedic surgery. But then beneath orthopedics, we call it adult recon. Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Or adult reconstruction. But it's really hip and knee replacement. Like, that's the surgical discipline that I spend a lot of time in. But then there's spine. There's dedicated spine teams. There's
Shoulder.
hand and upper extremity. Right, upper extremity, which is shoulder, of course. There's sports guys that are focused more on the athlete type, those types of injuries that you would have.
Feet guys.
Foot and ankle guys. What else we got? We got
Physiatry, which is not a
physiatry.
surgical specialty.
Yeah, great point. Remember how I said there were 18 physicians, but only 15 were surgeons? Yeah, physiatry is one of those areas. It's kind of like, how would I explain that? Kind of nerve, muscle pain physicians, like movement specialists. Sometimes you can avoid surgery completely. In fact, oftentimes you can. Right. Surgery should always be the last option for probably anything that we discuss, including hip and knee replacement. I said it on the record. But physiatry, sometimes selective injections of the spine, for example, can really help patients that are suffering with back pain or nerve pain. So we're glad we can offer that at the clinic.
And so you mentioned injections could be a possible path before surgery. What are some other things? You say surgery should always be last option.
Yeah.
What are some other things that y'all might recommend or try before surgery?
Yeah, I mean, in general, motion is life and life is motion. So I think that's the heart of all of us, no matter what our subdiscipline is to try to keep the body moving. Mm-hmm. But activity is most important.
Yeah.
I think if I had to say one global thing, there are some over-the-counter things. Now, we have to be careful here. I don't want to make any specific recommendation for any individual person, but over-the-counter options like Tylenol, this is one of the most common questions I get. Tylenol, Advil, is there any difference, So Tylenol is a mild painkiller, but the anti-inflammatories are the Advils and the Aleve or ibuprofen. So those are a different class of medicines. So Tylenol kind of stands by itself. Tylenol can help some musculoskeletal pain. Tylenol can. And it's probably the safest over-the-counter option we have for all kinds of aches and pains. But the anti-inflammatories, so Advil, Aleve, ibuprofen, these are in a category over here. These are more likely to help with musculoskeletal type pain. So anti-inflammatories, short periods of RICE, we talk about rest, ice, compression, elevation. These can help. And even though I say stay in motion, it's also good to use good common sense, right? There's something about pushing too hard. So the body's an amazing thing. Staying in motion is key. Sometimes the over-the-counter anti-inflammatories can help for short periods of rest. But ultimately, look, don't overlook anything. Again, I think we said earlier, rage into the darkness. Like, don't accept limitations in your life because those limitations only grow, right? That's the challenge. And it can happen to you very, very slowly. So I would want you to guard against that.
So you said ice.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people use heat for injuries. When do you ice versus heat?
Yeah.
What do you recommend and when?
Yeah. Whatever feels the best is what I recommend.
Okay.
It really isn't.
Really?
Sometimes it's
Okay.
sometimes it's a bit of trial and error. There's nothing about ice or heat that's curing anything. Now, in general terms, ice is more for the acute injury because ice helps minimize swelling. Okay, so ice is your friend with swelling. Heat tends to increase the blood flow to the area, like if you have a sore muscle or something, and kind of promote healing. So if you use heat early on, it can make the swelling worse, right? So swelling sometimes is painful. So I tell people to alternate. They're both safe. Nothing is going to cause damage. Usually, depending on if it's a fairly recent injury or more chronic injury, they're going to have a quick preference one way or the other. But both are safe.
But not like too long. Like I'm not supposed to like ice my back for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, just thinking through that, you don't want to burn your skin, right?
Yes.
So you got to be careful about placing anything too cold up against your skin. But then the other issue is if you're sitting there icing for an hour, you're not moving, right? So there's this balance of, yes, ice can help minimize swelling, but really the overriding principle should be motion.
Which I think that leads me into a question I did have about kind of prepping for surgery, because I feel like a lot of your patients probably know several years in advance that this is probably going to happen at some point in time or another. What can they do to ready their bodies so that their recovery is easier?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, stay overall healthy is critical, right? I mean, for all the orthopedic stuff we're about to talk about, it's the patient's overall health which is so critical. So visit your primary care doctor.
Right.
At Williamson Health, at least once a year. This is really important. That kind of stuff that just falls in the background and we just ignore because all our lives are busy. Staying healthy is critically important. And, weight always gets tagged as this, essential metric. Well, it's not in it. It's one of the many factors we should be looking at, right? So we talk about BMI and you can Google that, it's just your height and weight and what's your BMI and is it in a good zone. This is one gross, imperfect indicator of overall health. How are you moving? Are you getting better? I'm more impressed with the trajectory of the line than anything, right? Because just like we said, these things happen slowly to us over time. So if you're continuing to raise your BMI, which is, again, just being a little bit heavier, not as active, that's going to cause all kinds of problems. In the joint replacement world, what I talk about, for every pound you lose, this seems incredible, but for every pound you lose, it takes 4 pounds of pressure off your joint every time you take a step. This is powerful.
That's insane.
So what can you do to help your joint pain? Well, lose a little weight.
For
right?
every 1 pound,
every
you have
pound,
4 pounds,
4 pounds
less on your joints.
Yeah.
every time you take a step. So it's cumulative, right? It's incredibly cumulative. So stay overall healthy. Very important. That can also help your joints, of course, but stay overall healthy, really critical. And then I always tell people, come to surgery as strong as you can. Many patients, they feel this, and they're like, okay, now time's for surgery. Do you want me to go to physical therapy right before surgery? In truth, probably not. Sometimes being too aggressive before surgery will lead to swelling and pain and stiffness. I don't want you to come to surgery swollen and painful and stiff, but I do want you to come to surgery with strong muscles. That's the long game, right? So I want you to be active and stay active in your daily life. If I had to pick one thing that I think all of us should be doing more, it's walk. Because we all have access to walking, right? You can't say, I don't have access to a pool, or, it's too hot outside. Great, go to the mall. Like, we all have access to walking.
Right.
So if I had to pick one thing, I'd say walk.
Well, that's great, because I was going to ask about prevention before pains or before surgeries even thought about. As I get older, I know I'm trying to do all that I can to stay as healthy as possible down the road. So are there other things? Walking is great, of course, keeping our weight just in check. Are there other things specific to our bones and our joints that we could or should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, you hear a lot around osteoporosis. We'll certainly get that, but it's the load-bearing exercises. One thing that we didn't highlight that I probably should, strength training is important. We should all be doing so. And I'm not talking about bro lifting, chest and tries, back and buys, although I encourage that routine. No, I'm talking about putting some weight through your bones. So you think about walking, right? Walking's obviously load-bearing for your legs, not doing anything for your upper body. Right? If you want to be able to push and pull and get yourself around with your upper body, we have to pay attention to that too. So strength training, I think, is really, really important as we mature.
It just popped in my head when you were talking about that, or the weighted vest. It's a big trend right now, especially I think among women. Are those helpful? Do those work?
They're very helpful. I think they look cool, which is good.
Yeah.
No, it's the same concept of exercising at a heavier weight, right, with regard to strengthening of the muscles, right, that's good. And then obviously through your day you're taking it off. So you're getting the benefits of the extra weight to strengthen your muscles during times of exercise, right? But then you're not carrying it around, because you might say, well, instead of a weighted vest, I'll just eat more cookies. That doesn't work, because the ability to take it on and off. But there's great science and great data behind it. It increases your calorie burn. It's simple. It's low impact. Obviously, most people people are doing weighted vests during walking. But again, you can take it off when you're not exercising. That's the big differentiator.
Yeah. So I think I'm hearing I'm going to walk at the mall with a weighted vest while I shop for shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll have if you can do it.
Yeah.
That's
Allowed.
great. That can be dangerous.
And tell my husband that's what Dr. Calendine said to
Doctor's
do.
orders.
Doctor's orders.
Yeah, you can tell him. Yeah. This is recorded. He'll be able to see.
So you talked about each individual receives personalized care. There's not one size fits all when it comes to surgery and all the things y'all treat. So what about, you hear sometimes patients will have bilateral knees. They'll do both at the same time.
Yeah.
What goes into a discussion or a thought regarding one knee versus two? Because I know that's something that sometimes people will talk about.
Oh, yeah. No, it comes up from time to time. There are increased risk, as you might assume, if you do two surgeries on the same day versus one. The analogy that I use, and it's a little bit unfortunate that we're recording, but this is the truth, and I'm going to give you the truth. I often counsel patients, if you want to do both knees at the same time, it's kind of like signing up for 2 car wrecks on the same day.
Wow.
And that usually gets their attention. Now, surgery is controlled in every way, right? Every way. Not just anesthesia and pain medicine, but everything we do technically is controlled. But it's still trauma to the body. So the biggest reason not to do both knee replacements at the same time is the issue that it's additional trauma to your body all at once, right? If you were going to have 2 major car wrecks, God forbid, you'd probably want to spread them out so your body could recover in between. Because ultimately we're talking about the safety of your heart and lungs. So what's my job? First, do no harm, right? I've got to protect you over everything, and I take that very, very seriously. So this concept of doing both knees at the same time, there is increased surgical risk because it's double the surgical trauma, again controlled, but shouldn't be scoffed at because there are real medical heart and lung type issues that can occur around major surgeries. Now, having said that, if people are young, healthy, and both knees are equally limiting, you can have a situation where both knees are so stiff that if you, for example, in a knee, you replace one knee and it has normal motion, but the other one is so stiff they can't walk because one's bent almost in half and the other one's now straight. They're unable to rehab one because of the advanced disease of the other. Now, this is uncommon, but there are situations where you would consider both at the same time and you'd accept those risks in a young, healthy person. But in general, we recommend spreading them out, not because of an orthopedic thing, but because of a medical safety.
Right. And are any of those ever done outpatient, or are those all going to be like inpatient stays?
Bilateral knees, yeah. So I've done bilateral knees and let them go home the same day, but don't put that in the recording.
It's not the expectation.
It's not the expectation. No. I would share this openly. Is it possible? Yes. What we're doing is very controlled, and yes, you could technically go home the same day, but again, it's twice the surgery. You're more likely to stay overnight. You bring up a good point. I think I said earlier in 2007. Patients were in the hospital 3 or 4 days after every surgery. Now 70-80% of people go home the same day.
Which is just insane
after a hip and knee replacement. And again, it's not that I'm pressuring them out. If I was having surgery, I'd rather sleep in my own bed. So I guess that is my bias. But otherwise, as a surgeon, it doesn't matter. And even insurance is not pressuring us. I mean, insurance doesn't really detect a difference between going home the same calendar day and staying one night. Oftentimes this is the same classification for the insurance. So it's not even the insurance pushing them out, But it really is like people are able to be mobile. We get them up and get them around right away. And again, people want to be in their own bed, which I certainly understand.
It's just such a different world than it was 20 years ago for orthopedics. Like, y'all have come so far.
Yeah, 20 years. It hit me a little hard there. That I've been doing this almost 20 years. Yeah,
but
sorry, I wasn't braced for that.
You've seen the evolution of it, though. Like, you started seeing, when they were not using robotics and what that did to the patient versus now. I mean, I think that's an incredible journey to have been on in your career.
Yeah. I like to say what we were doing for the patient, not to the patient.
Yes,
but yes,
fair enough.
No, it is a major thing to get through, and I would want every patient to know that we carry that burden. Like we really are doing that to you. Like that's not wrong, and I think I can speak easily for all of my partners. We have this deep burden, I guess, but one that we choose to pick up. That there's a huge responsibility that comes with when someone's in front of you and they're willing to lay down and let you take a knife to their skin with the only goal of improving their life, that's a special connection, and I'm certainly grateful to be a part of that.
Yeah. What is the most rewarding part of your job?
Oh, I mean, just seeing patients come back, out of pain.
Pain-free.
And they all have their unique stories. Like, somebody wants to go to Disney with their grandkids. Now, why anybody would want to do that is I don't have grandkids yet, but my goodness, I avoid that place.
But that's a lot of walking, so if you've got bad knees or hips,
it's incredible.
You can't do that.
Well, and when the kids were young, I didn't seem to mind. And so, it's getting them back to, or, it's the guy who wants to play golf or the lady that wants to do more to church or any other. There are thousands of stories, and my clinic's full of them. Like they all have those stories about what individually they were trying to get back to in life, and that's the cool stuff.
Yeah. And you get to hear that at their follow-up visit and follow that journey with them. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of follow-up visits, what does an average week look like for you? What are the different roles and activities and things that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance. I'm a surgeon. We keep kind of highlighting that. But surgery, I do surgery 2 or 3 days a week, depending. I have an alternating cycle. And then I'm in clinic the other days of the week. Okay. And then obviously here at Williamson, we take acute injuries through the emergency room. So obviously, I'm on call from time to time and seeing those patients with fractures and those kind of things. But it's a mix. I guess it's all patient facing, but more often than not, it's actually clinic based, which may come as a surprise for some people. A lot of what we do is non-surgical, right? So surgery is just one of those tools that we use to help people.
Right. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it. I know you are no stranger to the social media world or to talking to all the, you travel around and educate people, right? I mean, that's part of... Yeah.
We didn't get into that maybe, but clinic and surgery, but also in this endless attempt to be better, right? Yeah. You have to interact with people locally, of course, but nationally, internationally, I've been able to travel with... meet other surgeons from other countries that are doing hip and knee replacement, but in a very different way. It's been so beneficial, and hopefully, the whole point there is to bring all of that information, all those connections to benefit the patients right here. So thank you for having me. I think it's incredible that Williamson Health is doing this, to reach out in this very tangible way where people can kind of get behind the scenes a little bit. I think it's incredible. So thank you for having me.
We're so lucky to have you. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.